Yeah.
Hey, I got you now, JJ.
All right. Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
All right, it is 10 o'clock. We'll call the meeting to order and we'll rise for the pledge. United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, I would just like to notice that we do have Commissioner Holland and Commissioner Waldham that are joining us remotely. And on the agenda here, it does show where they're located. And they are open to the public. With that, I'd just like to just open real quick here with, we're gonna talk about Wi-Fi, or not Wi-Fi, but broadband. This has been something that we've been, on my 10 years on the board, it's been on our radar the whole time and before. I know the last 4, maybe 5 years, we kind of heated it up a little bit. And I don't, it's kind of one of them things where we just put it a little bit more to the forefront. When I get an email or open up a paper or something and look at it and it says we're bottom in the state of Minnesota, this county. I look geographically at it and we have a lot of struggles with that, but there are counties that are smaller, less money, bigger, that are better than us in the state of Minnesota. And that kind of, it makes me disappointed. And I know, Steve, you've been working on it probably the 18 years you've been on or so, or however many years, so and it's hard. I mean, our county can't just put up, and I know, I think it was at Lake County that they just decided that they were gonna put it in to every house there. And I think it was, what was it, 15 million or something like that, or was it 30? It was a lot of money.
Yeah, I think it was, I
I
don't
believe
know.
is what it ended up. I'm not sure.
More than
Yeah,
that.
yeah, I mean,
North
it,
of
it,
Six.
it was ridiculous what it costs, but they did it. And I don't think anybody's looking back now. They ended up, getting it done. And, so what I'd like to see out of today is, with the providers at the table, maybe just a little bit of, hey, this is what it would take to get it done. Cause I know you guys aren't gonna just put the money up and lose money. I get it. I own a business. We gotta have a return on investment, but we've had a conversation before about, garbage hauling and stuff like that. And what does it take to get to that point where, we got 500 households in this area. For us to get a return on investment, we need an extra whatever per household. I would like to at least see some numbers like that. Not saying we're gonna write you a check, but it would be nice for planning in the future to just say, this is on our radar, but we're just not there yet. If we had this, it would push us over. And I can't, just say that the board is gonna go for it either, but I'm the type that likes to see, let's plan 5, 10 years out and just get some sort of information on that. So, that went on way more than, probably a little more detailed than I was thinking, but I would like to start off with introductions. I was gonna do that before I even talk. So I will start. I'm Josh Moore, Pine County Board Chair, District Two Commissioner. Let's just go this way.
Dave Minke, County Administrator.
Mary Kay Sloan, I'm on the HRA EDA for the county.
Scott Savage, I'm Vice President of Business Development at SCI Broadband or Savage Communications.
I'm Leslie Sauter, Pine County's Economic Development Coordinator.
I'm Debbie Gray. I'm Office Manager for the Administrator's Office at the county.
I'm Dennis Rice. I am the Broadband Manager at East Central Energy.
Hi, Hogan, Vice President CIO at East Central Energy.
Rick Lewis, I'm on the HRA EDA committee.
Hudson Moorhead with Hometown Fiber.
I'm Kyle Moorhead with Hometown Fiber. I'm Roger Nelson, Pine County Commissioner, District 3.
I'm Matt Ludwig, Pine County Commissioner, District 5.
And do you want me to
Yeah.
coordinate the ones online? So we have two commissioners online, Steve Holland and JJ Waldham, if you want to introduce
Yep.
yourself.
Steve Holland, District One, the Pine City area. So I'm really happy to have the providers here, and I hope we can celebrate a little bit of our accomplishments that we finally can see some vast improvements from where we were 3 years ago, let's say.
JJ, you wanna go?
JJ Waldam, District 4 Commissioner, Northern Pine County.
And we have the county attorney online, Reese, if you want to go next.
Good morning, Reese Frederickson, County Attorney.
And I'll just go down the list that I have, if when I call your name, if you want to introduce yourself. Ellie,
Hi, everybody. I'm Ellie Burrows, Government Relations Manager with Midco.
and Dave. Was that Dave Banta? Were you on?
Yeah, Dave Banta, Pine County Planning and Zoning.
And Hannah?
Hannah Buckland, Digital Equity Program Lead with the Office of Broadband Development.
And Rachel?
Rachel Loeffler Kemp with U.S. Senator Amy Klobuchar's office.
Todd?
Good morning, Todd Cruz, Frontier Communications, and I'm on our government and grants team.
And Diane?
Thanks, Diane Wells, Deputy Director at the Office of Broadband Development, and I can join until 11, and then I have another meeting. Thanks.
Is there anyone online that I missed? Okay, thank you very much. And just a note for those in the room, we do have microphones around the table, but if you do speak, if you can speak into the mic so that the people online can hear. Thank you.
All right, so thanks everybody again. And with that, we will go into presentation of Pine County Broadband Initiative, and looks like Leslie, you are taking the reins.
I am. Thank you. And Ryan's gonna get that pulled up for me. Thank you, everyone. Again, I'm Leslie Sauter, Pine County's Economic Development Coordinator. Person who was tasked with hopefully getting broadband to be a little bit better in Pine County over the last almost 4 years. So today, I am just gonna kind of take you guys through what we've done since 2021. I started in May of 2021 here. So that's kind of when the ticker started ticking. And in front of you is also a list of what we've done. It's more comprehensive, but this is also on our broadband webpage on the county's website. So kind of where I pulled this presentation from. We will highlight our major accomplishments, identify additional challenges that might still be lingering, and then hopefully come up with a plan moving forward of how we can work together with our providers to finish out the rest of the county and make sure that every resident and business has access to broadband should they want it. So some of our major milestones included planning. So what did we have? What do we need? We engaged with the community initially. We mapped out what existed. We encouraged people to do speed tests. We've done that a couple different times. We conducted a survey, which kind of shed some light on what people were using, what their experiences were like, and what else they needed. And we also participated in the state's digital equity programming, which wrapped up in 2023. Throughout all of that, we secured some funding, and it wasn't necessarily just Pine County, but it was some of our providers. But notably, we received a community development block grant, coronavirus funds to expand broadband to low and moderate income areas. We got some congressionally directed spending through the Reconnect program with USDA Rural Utility Services. The Border to Border program through the state of Minnesota Office of Broadband Development has funded a couple projects in our county over the last 3 years. We've invested some of the county's ARPA funding, and we've received a private grant donation through the Blandon Foundation for some of our work. We've worked with the following providers to get better broadband to our residents and businesses, and that included projects with Midco, EC Fiber, SCI Broadband or Savage Communications, and Starwire Technologies out of Wisconsin. So something that I kind of like to reflect back on is that in the early months, April and June of 2021, we really encouraged people to do speed tests. And that map is difficult to kind of see because it's kind of a big county and there's a lot of little dots, but you can see the red dots, and the red dots indicate poor service. Black dots indicate no service. But what we found is that the people that were participating in that, like 44% had no service offered. Others weren't engaging because it was high. And a very small percentage did not want it or need it. Because sometimes you hear that, like, well, people just aren't getting it because they don't want it. That was actually quite small. So that was kind of how the survey and the speed test resulted. It was kind of what we already knew anecdotally. But it gives us a place to start from. And I do think, you know, moving into 2025, it would be helpful to push this out again, do a similar survey, encourage people to do another speed test to kind of see where we've gotten since 2021. We also used some of our Blandon funding to hire Hometown Fiber. We matched it with some ARPA dollars, and we mapped out what our existing infrastructure looked like. Red is bad. The purplish pink also bad. So what we found is that in our more higher populated areas, they had decent connections, which went hand in hand with what we were hearing. Is that more higher populated areas were getting the broadband infrastructure, the more rural areas were not. What they also, Hometown Fiber also kind of shared with us is that there was a lot of infrastructure that needed repairs. So people might be able to access some semi-decent speeds, but because of repairs not happening in the field, that is why they weren't getting the speeds that they were told were being offered and what they were paying for. The green and the blue, while they're very small on this map and kind of right in the Pine City area, a little bit down in Rock Creek, and then up into the Sandstone areas, in Hinckley, they didn't exist as much. And it would be very interesting to remap this out to kind of see where everything is today or by the end of 2026 when a lot of these projects finish. I'll back to that quick. We use this to kind of help inform ourselves, but also develop our broadband grant program. So they mapped this out and helped us create kind of a stepping stone to grant out our ARPA funds to providers to target areas that had bad service so that we weren't just investing in areas that had good. And this map, while it's super messy, is also a very good picture of what we've done over the last few years. So the first thing that we added to our Pine County GIS system was the RDOF funding. Midco is the dark green areas in the south. SCI was a pink polygon kind of in the middle. And then LTD Broadband, who is not coming here to do this, was those peachish areas. And so moving forward, we probably want to remove that layer for the LTD just to show the areas that are not being touched with RDOF funds right now are still out for bid or working through the LTD process, but I don't believe they are coming here. There's a lot caught up with the Public Utilities Commission in them. So that's where we started was looking at RDOF and where gaps still existed. And so the county worked with Savage Communications on a CDBG coronavirus grant application. And those are the black lines that you see in the middle. So it was kind of a tricky project. We had to target census tracts that had a 51% or higher low and moderate income level for the residents. That was the only way we could spend those dollars, is if we were going to hit higher percentage low and moderate income households. So we used that data, layered it with what you were doing already, and that's how we targeted these kind of sporadic black areas. But we used close to $3 million to do that. Then there were a couple border to border, there's been several border to border applications for Pine County, but we had two that believe were funded. And that's in round 7 and round 9, one going to EC Fiber and one going to Savage Communications. And you can see the bold yellow lines were the SCI project area, and then the bright green polygon with the dark green wiggles in it was ECE's award. Meanwhile, we also threw some mud at the wall. I say that all the time when I talk about the congressionally directed spending, because it is like a one-page application saying we want to do some broadband in a really hard to serve area. So we need it to be 100% grant funds, and we're awarded the congressionally directed spending through the Reconnect program. That was a collaboration again with Savage Communications. And that is the light blue polygon, which filled in the gaps where RDOF wasn't serving. And that will serve east of Hinckley, very, very rural areas, very, very hard to serve. Would make no financial sense to run fiber out there because you're not going to have the take rate you need to pay it back. So that $5.5 million will help make that cash flow, but also connect some of our most remote locations in Pine County so that they can have access to fiber. And the Blandin Foundation, very small grant amount. I want to say it was like $75,000 maybe that we got. And SCI did a few miles up in the Carrick area, a handful of drops, and then Starwire did a couple fixed wireless towers in Shangwatana and Pine City Township to get people connected to decent speeds of internet. So while the whole county isn't covered today or won't be covered once all of these projects are finished, we've definitely put a dent in it. And if you were to survey the residents, I think there are people that are like, yes, I'm going to get served either through ECE Fiber or Midco or Savage Communications soon. I've seen them go by my house. I'm signed up. I'm just waiting to be connected. So I would say 2/3 of the county is seeing that improvement, and we're getting there. I kind of alluded to this. I think moving forward, we should do another survey. I think that survey from 2021 is helpful to look at, but it's also not necessarily relevant to today. So I'm adding that to my to-do list. And then strengthening our partnerships with providers. So what led us to all of those funding successes was early conversations, having Savage Communications at the table, having even East Central Energy before they were going to do fiber at the table and involved, and having Midco as well as Starwire, and now Frontier is coming and to discuss what is it that you need from the county, what kind of support do you need, and what are the local issues you're encountering as you try to expand into these very rural areas. And so my next 2 slides are just discussion questions for our commissioners as well as our providers. And I guess what I'm looking forward to hearing from the commissioners is, what are you hearing? What are you seeing? And what does it look like to you as a unit of government moving forward as we try to address these fiber issues?
I have a question. Yeah, go ahead. So I remember back when we were first having discussions that there were areas where no one had the rights to go. So some other companies own them and they live there somewhere else. Like I think on Nurses Road off of a government road, there was an area in there that we can't, do those still exist? Where you don't have the rights and you don't have the rights to put your stuff in there?
I guess I'm confused. What do you mean the rights to?
I'm wondering if that had to do with the LTE, that, like the car, right? The LTD that had the won the reverse auction to do the service, so that grants federal money wasn't allowed to be spent in those areas. I think
At one
that's-
time, we couldn't apply for funds where LTD was awarded RDOF funding,
Okay,
but that's all changed. I mean, they.
okay,
they
so
weren't
I didn't know
awarded
that.
funding, so now we can,
Okay.
yeah.
Leslie? I, I'm real excited about the progress we've made and hopefully after this meeting, the providers can provide us with some good map overlays so that we can have a map to show us in this part of the county, we are, I believe we have townships that we can say are 100% passed, or by the end of this summer will be 100% passed in this township and this township, and then I can look at it visually and say, okay, we promised the county when we started this that we weren't going to take our foot off the gas until we had everybody connected. And so we made, I believe, huge progress because of ECE's entry into it. Midco committed, and certainly Savage was there from the very beginning, doing what they do well. And so after today, then maybe we can really concentrate on how are we going to get to those next really, really hard places to serve.
Thank you. The one thing I wanted to just say is back when how long ago was it we got that thing and it said we were last or second to last? Was it 3 years ago, 4 years ago, something like that? It was
Yeah.
Consistently, like every year. Yep.
Yeah.
When it kind of struck me and I was like, this is kind of ridiculous. We need to make it a priority. And I think that's kind of where we were is broadband is as important, I will say as important as cellular service and electricity. You cannot function. I have a family of, there's 6 of us in the household and 3 of them are in K through 12 and one's in college. And just that simple stuff, you can't operate a household without some form of decent broadband. When we built our house 3 years ago, the only thing I had offered was a DSL, and the company wanted over $3,500 to run it up to my house. And I was gonna get 20 megs or something like that, I think is what it was. And I'm like 20, and I'm not real intelligent when it comes to this stuff, but 20 megs, I'm like, that isn't a lot, is it? He goes, well, you should be able to open your emails. I'm like, yeah, right. Okay, so the kids streaming their videos or doing schoolwork, like with COVID, that kind of stuff. No, not interested. I'm on the low orbiting satellite stuff now is what I got until someone gets there, and it's common, I know, but literally I can see 35 from my house, and if I didn't have a bunch of big trees, I could see Highway 23. I'm on the cross of 2 major highways within a mile on both sides. And we don't have good internet at my house. And my business in town, I actually just got fiber to it just recently, and I had decent internet before, but I had talked to that same provider. I know we all know who it is, but I could look out my office window and see their hub. And they wanted $30,000 to run fiber to my business. And it was like, he wanted me to sign a contract for like $700 a month for $400. I don't remember what it was for 7 years. Anyways, like, well, we found an alternative. Now I do have fiber right to the building, and we're not a big technically advanced business, but I was at the limit, like we couldn't operate my phone. If guys were looking for stuff on the computer and a phone would ring, it would drop off or I'd lose phone calls. And we're right on Main Street, right directly in the middle of Pine City. So these are things and that's a highly served area, so, and there was still struggles there. So these are, like I said, we needed to make it important. I think as a county board, I do want to see it as important as if we had someone somewhere that didn't have electricity or something like that, it would be like unheard of. And I think broadband is one of them things. And I do argue with people a lot where they're like, well, I don't need it. I don't need it. Well, that's fine. If you don't want it or need it, I mean, that's okay as well. But these are probably the people that don't probably need electricity either, I guess, as far as I'm concerned. But that's kind of where I'm at. Sorry. I lost track there. Who else wanted to say anything?
I'll say that I have fiber to my house now, and that's excellent. SCI cable. It's just amazing. I can have all the grandkids on iPads and just wide open.
Couple in response to your questions up there, what stories have you heard? There was a flurry of activity east of Hinckley this year with cable being laid and such, and strung both. It seems that there was a fair amount of excitement, but that seems to have like, well, when are they going to finish this? So we kind of entered that phase. Also, maybe a couple observations, a story that I heard, and I observed this as well. Somebody saying, I don't have anything, and yet 3 miles down the road, they have ECE, SCI, and I believe still CenturyLink or whatever that is. All three are competing in that. Well, I don't know if they're competing or not, but their hardware is going through that same area, and yet somebody else has nothing. So that seems to be a observation that is frustrating. And then my last question was, where is CenturyLink as far as their involvement in this? Because I will just speak for me personally. Where I live happened to be, it's pretty rural, but I think the CenturyLink put in fiber because the regular line was so bad that they had to do something. So I have a hub that's 1/8 of a mile from my house. And so I don't know. I mean, I did a speed test this morning just to make sure, 69 uploaded, no, it's 69 down and a 20 up, which is, it's not, I don't know if that's broadband, acceptable. You're talking about this 100, but it's pretty close. But it's like, oh, is that going to be good enough? And so nobody else wants to go in there now because we, and are those people in that area stuck with CenturyLink? Only so those are questions that I hear from the public. About where this is at. And again, being new, not being part of the discussions previous, I'm just reflecting what I hear from the community.
I've heard this thing.
And that's where I get out of today is some of the hurdles that providers are finding that, it just, like I said, I was a block away in the provider. I don't not think he figured it would cost 30 grand to get to our store. So, but that's the kind of stuff that I'd like to see is what would it take? I think, what do they call last mile or whatever to get some of these deals that are done, and maybe that's where county.
And maybe if I could, Mr. Chair, maybe the providers can fill in some of the blanks, but I know they were working feverishly to put as much fiber in the ground and on poles as they could. And then they had crews coming and doing the hookups, and then, winter happened. And so it kind of had to come to a halt until the next construction season, which will open up in a couple more months. But I think that's where we're at with those questions about, so what happened? I saw them working their tail off and they got 2 miles from my house, and then what happened? And we do live in a era of competition, and a competition's good. So we do see certain households that have at least two providers that are right there at their doorstep, maybe three. And then a mile down the road, we have somebody there that still has zilch. And I'm hoping today the providers will be able to fill in some of those blanks of when can we expect, or when can my neighbor expect somebody to show up and say, hey, we're going to be connecting somebody here next June.
Thank you. I don't know, what do you want to?
Yeah, so the agenda is kind of flexible with the idea that each provider would have some time to talk about what they're doing, such. And so I don't know if our comments are done, if we're ready to move into that phase.
Yeah, that sounds good. Anybody else got anything to add?
Question would be,
Yeah, JJ, you got anything you want to chat about before we get providers going?
Well, there was some discussion about more speed tests, and what's everybody's thought on that? Because the only people that participated last time was a total of 7%, with the participation goal only 10%. I don't know. Are those good numbers? And why is it that people just don't care about the fiber, or what should we have done different? Was this rolled out poorly?
Yeah, I think a lot of it is that's probably about what you can expect. I mean, it really is. As much as I talk to people and they're extremely interested in it, I just had one the other day because, EC is rolling out. They're hitting a big part of it. And the guy's like, yeah, I don't know what's going on. I'm like, well, did you go online and sign up? They got a real easy thing. You go on there, put your address. Well, no, why am I supposed to do that? I know if you're a customer of ECE, you got it in the mail, you got emailed, you probably had someone even knock on your door about it. But so much of this stuff is literally to sit down for 30 seconds or 2 minutes to do it. Most people just ain't gonna do it. And I think it's up to us to really push it and get it out as much as we can. Literally, we could go knock on everybody's door and they ain't gonna do it, so they're gonna complain about it, but they ain't gonna do it. So I do think, and Leslie, it sounds like you kind of are planning on doing another one, or maybe you need some direction from us or whatever, and I'm sure it costs money. So no? Okay.
Logging it. Tell us.
I didn't hear that.
Sorry. Yeah, we could definitely roll out another speed test request of the residents and the businesses where you log their address and then their speed test, and we collect that. So
Okay. Yeah, no, I think that's good direction to go for sure. And yeah.
So I guess my question would be, what's going to be done differently to get a better participation? Because I guess just what I'm hearing, if nobody seems to care about it, and there's only a 7% participation, wow, what don't I get here?
Yeah, I would say that I don't think people don't care. It's just people don't do the stuff required. I mean, we could look at elections. I mean, you don't get 100% of people to do elections, and I'd argue that's probably one of the most things.
Right, we get 60%, 70%. Yeah.
I think when if I could, Mr. Chair, we were dealing with the Blandon Brown Broadband Foundation, and they from all of their studies, they said shoot for 10% participation rate, which is like way high. and we got, I don't know what we got, 7, if I
7.
remember right. They were happy with that. That was considered pretty good. And if, you know, the problem we have or had, and maybe still have, if you have decent internet, you're not as inclined to go through the work of, it's not much work, but it's just, there's no incentive there. If you have really, really bad internet, and some people had 0 internet, you can't do a speed test. And so, you know, we were fighting both ends of that. And so the Blandon people, who are the broadband experts in the Midwest, considered that to be a pretty good sample.
Mr. Chair?
So with all the providers there in the room, I mean, are they going to be able to provide internet to only, I mean, 7% of the population or 7% of the people? I would imagine they'd need some higher, you know, return.
No, that 7% was how many people filled out the survey.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Here, I was just going to note that Diane Wells from the State Office of Broadband is on the call. I wonder, Diane, do you have any statewide perspective on the speed tests or the feedback or trending on the utility of the speed tests?
She had to leave for a meeting, didn't she?
Yeah, that was until 11, but we'll let her go. But what I was gonna say is we did what did we do that, I can't think now, I was gonna write it down, but the strategic plan. That was one of the number one things when we did do that survey deal. That broadband was number one. All that, the plan, but the other, sorry, it lost me. But anyways, it is a big deal, and anybody that is communicating, I guess, or giving input, it is a big deal. And I would assume the providers are hearing, you know, hey, when are you coming to my house or whatever. I mean, I don't, and for every one, there's at least 10 that are behind them, wondering the same thing. So, I don't know. Let's move on to the providers a little bit, and I don't know, whoever wants to go first can kind of start.
Yeah, I'd be happy to go first. I'm going to try and share my screen here.
Maybe we'll just identify that that's Scott from SCI for those who maybe can't tell from the online.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I just sent a request to be able to share my screen. I'm not sure if.
Great. Yeah, that number 1 or 2.
Okay, well, thanks for including us. We appreciate the relationship we built over the last, many years. Really, we've been in business for 40 years, providing internet services for 25. We started right in Hinckley. Currently, we have service in 13 different counties. And since conversations started with Pine County 4 years ago, Pine County has really become a primary focus for us. Over the last few years, we've built over 300 miles of underground fiber optic cable, distribution cable to over 4,000 homes. And we continue these build outs. But as you can see from the map, our primary focus in Pine County is Hinckley North. That's what our focus has been since 4 years ago when discussions began. But on the map here, you can see everywhere in blue is our current service area. Everywhere in yellow is where we're committed to building.
Scott, can I ask a question? the blue, was that prior to, that's what you had prior to 2022 or whatever?
The blue is, no, the blue is what we've built out over the last 4 years. We've basically,
Okay,
conversations, we primarily service within the city limits of, Hinckley,
Yep.
cities up the 35 corridor.
That's what I thought, but
For
I
years,
wanted to make sure.
yep, we've expanded well beyond it into the lower density areas.
What do you see when you go by X number of houses? How many people, do you stop or proactive for telling you can hook up now, or do they have to come to you? And what do you see for percentage of people jumping on?
Yeah, so in the end, our goal is to get 50% take rate. That's our end goal. And that happens over a course of a few years. So initially you get, the plow is the biggest advertising right off the bat, right? People are calling right away. The people that really need it are gonna call, right? And then we go back and market as things slow down, and we bury all of our drops in-house too. So we kind of just, spread
That's
that
exactly
over
what I
time.
did. I had to
Right.
call like a year later or whatever.
Yep.
Yeah.
So it's steady growth, right? So that makes sense?
Yeah.
Yep.
So again, everything in yellow is all committed areas. We're gonna be starting, we have another roughly 400 miles to build within the county over the next 2 years. That's gonna be a combination of private capital. We have a border to border grant, and also the congressional directed spending through Reconnect program. And this is all fiber to that. It is all fiber to the home, 2 gigabit symmetrical speeds with capabilities of up to 10 gigabit. So this is all the newest technology that we're putting in.
And so even the furthest east on that yellow, by the fall of 2027, you're gonna be there?
That's the goal. We do have 4 years to build.
Okay,
Build all that stuff out on the far east side of the county. But that is the goal by the end of 2027 to have that built.
And if there's another provider in that area to, piggyback onto that question I asked earlier, are you still going to, because that's in your area, are you still going to build on those roads that there's a fiber already there?
We have a commitment through the USDA to get this built.
Okay, great.
Perfect. Is that kind of what you got?
That's our latest update with.
Okay.
You bet.
You're
Awesome.
in Willow River, correct?
Correct.
Are any plans to do anything further in northern Pine County or?
Yeah, I mean, everything in yellow. Yeah, you bet. I can zoom in for you up here too, if you'd like. Here's Partridge Township over here. Willow River is. Yeah, Willow River. So this is all built out this way. Oak Bend Way is up here to the north.
Okay.
And I guess the other thing I'll mention to say too is, obviously everybody's been discussing BEAD, the federal BEAD program. We're tracking that very closely. It's highly likely that we're going to be involved in BEAD and continuing to look to expand in Pine County further than what we're already committed to.
What are some barriers that your company has encountered? I guess in Pine and even not Pine, but or maybe not really, other than funds and people to get it done, I guess is.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a combination of issues. I mean, there's a lot of people building right now, right? I mean, there's a lot of need for, construction and laborers, and I think you have issues with the locating companies, they don't have enough people. You have permitting issues right now, the DNR and the state permitting, that process is taking longer than normal. I mean, you have the financial issues, and I mean, the last 4 years, that's what's allowed all of us to get into this is the grant opportunities, right? To get into these rural areas. So that's why 4 years ago, when the funding became available, border to border and federal grants and things, that's when we really got involved in it. So all the grants has made it feasible to expand to the rural areas. So I think that financial hurdle is, I mean, you gotta be a little bit careful, but I mean, it's still an issue, but it's been worked through.
Yeah, it was funny when we had a second location up by Hinckley, and I was approached by a contractor to use our parking lot as a staging area to build fiber.
Yep.
And I'm like, well, great. And that was another example. That business was right on 35, a mile north of 23. And we had DSL. Like I couldn't hardly operate my business with that one. And I had landline phones that were garbage. But anyways, make a long story short, this guy calls me up, want to use your parking lot for a staging area to build out fiber. Like, oh, that's awesome. Great. You know what? How soon before I'm gonna get it? Well, this is just passing through, but we're going 200 miles or 100 miles or whatever it was. It was going from somewhere to somewhere and it wasn't stopping, you know, so these guys, I don't know how big a crew it was, and they were in Pine County for a couple months, and literally they did us no good. They
Are you
provided-
in Hinckley Township?
Yeah, that was Hinckley Township. Closed that business now, so I'm not there no more, but that's where it was, yeah. So, and so, I mean, that's also problems that you guys are having when you got this other stuff that, and it's unfortunate that, you know, obviously they need it, but I hear a lot of times in the ditches out here, I think Steve, you said it, there's so much fiber running through our ditches, but it just passes through Pine County, and, you know, it'd be nice, and I get it, it costs money to put it in the ground, and all that stuff, but it'd be nice of a provider, you know, like SCI that's in an area and there's fiber going through, hey, you know, let's just tap into that instead of running another line right in the ground, because it's capable of it. And you know, so I don't know, maybe them are some hurdles we can work in the future or whatever, but.
And Commissioner Nelson, to answer your question about why we stop where we stop, I mean, a lot of the projects are built in phases, or it might be a different funding source, and there's different, you know, issues with, as far as environmental reviews that need to be completed prior to starting construction. You have permitting issues, so we build everything in phases or projects. And so we gotta draw the line somewhere, and our construction season's only so long, so.
Perfect. Well, let's go around the table. EC, you guys wanna?
Yeah, I don't have a link to share, but it's probably okay. I can talk through it, and I would say you asked about hurdles, not enough construction days in the year in Minnesota. We constructed in 2023 about 1,000 miles of fiber, and in 2024 another 1,000 miles, so 2,000 miles of fiber in 2-year period. Had 0 members connected as of December 15th, 2023. And now we've got just over 4,000 connected. Same issues, I mean, permitting, locates. At peak, we had 70 crews out in the field, and I'm sure you saw a lot of them. We had a lot of great crews. We had some that we struggled with, and we worked through a lot of those things. But I would say that that's our biggest hurdle, is building it out. Everyone, I mean, we get contacted how many times a day of when's it going to be here, where's it at. You're 100% spot on with us. All of our maps are public, so you can go and look at ecfiber.com, and they'll tell you where it's fully lit up right now. You could ask for service, and if it's an aerial drop, we'll get it yet this winter. If it's an underground drop, we need to wait till spring, just like any other underground outfit. And then the colors on the map all identify where we're going in 2025. And yeah, there's a lot of overbuild that'll happen in northern Pine County. We build out entire polygons, they're not linear lines down a road, or we're not going to high density area only areas. We're going to build out our substations, and same mentality in 1936, co-op served farmers and residents and businesses electrically, and the same concept applies. Does that mean we'll build 100% over the top of all of our electric members? Not necessarily. There's some areas that we're not going to construct. It just doesn't make economic sense to do it, as long as they have another reliable fiber to the home provider. So that's our kind of our mission vision for the project. And as of today, we're on track to have a 5-year project. You gotta remember, we serve portions of Northwest Wisconsin. So we got to get up there. We've got 2 grants on the Wisconsin side we have to cover. We'll be very active on the bead side too. That's all coming up here hot and heavy. So as far as the counties, what you can do to help, honestly, it's the, I feel like we've been very successful on our grants because of community support, because of Pine County, Kanabec County, Isani County. Could list the townships. We serve portions of 14 counties. I don't know the total townships. I don't remember the number off the top. But the support we get from the community doesn't mean financial support. Letters of support are critical for us, and that's free. I mean, other than the cost of the paper and sign it. So for us, that's been we've had over 100 letters of support on all of our grants combined, and that's probably our biggest ask is, and the financial requests that we've had haven't been big. We've asked for a small portion per polygon that we build out. So it's, but that does help. I mean, that does help Diane and the Office of Broadband and Dee to make decisions. So do you have any other numbers you want? I saw you writing some things down. Anything else to add?
Yes, I mean, you covered the big points as far as progress in the last 2 years, but sorry, a little bit covering from a cold here. So aside from the numbers that Ty covered, wanted to speak on kind of the start and stop logic. So a lot of the areas where we're building and probably SCI and other ISPs are, especially if we're seeking grant dollars, are all based on where there's service available and not service available. So sometimes that polygon might have been dictated by the BSL map, and that road on the other side might have what was considered adequate service at the time. And so that could be some of the start and stop areas. But as we build the network out, if there's what we would say is a stranded member across the street from where we're building, and we have a request and there's a need, we take that into consideration and do our best to try to extend where we can to help the members out.
I'll just add one last thing here is that we have our EC, our territory, the map is out there if you want to go check it out, where we serve electrically. That doesn't mean we'll serve non-electric members. We just signed up our first non-ECE electric member to be part of Connexus Energy and Isani. We were just going through that neighborhood and it worked out. We carved out that area to serve them. So they were activated as of last week. There's plenty of other pockets you'll see in there, Hinckley, Mora, that are not ECE electric members. But for now, our focus is on our ECE members on the electric side to get them service. I don't know if that answered everything, but
no. And you did talk a little bit about barriers, but is there anything you want to maybe, and like I said, I mean, if we could, we would just wave a magic wand, and I'm guessing you guys would not rather build out for 5 years either, or 2 years or 3 years. You'd rather just snap your fingers and it's done. Don't worry about guys paying their bills, but that, is there anything you'd like to add on, anything more you'd like to see out of the county or?
Yeah, I think we have had some townships and some of it's on our end with contractors and maybe not doing the work that we would prefer on, 90-year co-op. And we do the work there. When you hire and bring in a lot of contractors to do work, it's hard to mirror exactly what we do. So we've had some townships that we've struggled with, and we've worked through those. But now as we go into these new areas, we've been trying to reach out, go to all the townships, all the cities, all the counties to ensure that, hey, here's where we're going. This is what we're doing. Let's talk through permitting and any issues there. So that would probably be our biggest thing, is just assistance with the townships. We've had a lot of that already with Leslie and, outreach to townships to try to get contact information. Who should we be contacting there? But yeah, that's probably the biggest one lately.
Well, and that brings me to another thing, not broadband orientated, but I know Commissioner Holland and I, how we feel about zoning, and that's another one of them things that just it's real world for contractors to, I mean, you guys are going through different townships, you're going through different cities, you're doing all this stuff, and part of that planning process is talking to all these different getting different permits, and then permits cost money, and it's I think ridiculous where something like this is coming through. We could have a main point of contact here at the county, and you guys would know this person really well. Yep, we're looking at doing these permits going here, so that's another soapbox of mine. But I appreciate you bringing that out, because that can give me a little more tools there to argue my other end of it. But yeah, cool. Well, let's go to, looks like Ellie. I couldn't see the glare there. So how about Ellie?
Yes. Thank you all. I apologize I can't be there in person. We have a sick kiddo at home, so influenza has hit my house. So just a quick update from Midco. We do have those RDOF areas in Pine County that we are committed to serving out. We are currently working on our construction schedule for the next few years, and it's looking like we'll be getting started in 2026. That is our plan as far as that is looking like at the moment. And of course, that's subject to change as far as scheduling goes, but we plan to keep the county apprised of any changes on that. And then as far as BEAD looks like, we are going to be moving forward. We're evaluating our opportunities all across the state, but especially in Pine County. And I believe the pre-registration period is going to be opening soon, and we plan to complete in that. And then we will look to find those opportunities in Pine County. So that's kind of our short and quick update. I would, echo what the other providers have been saying as far as challenges with locates and things like that when it comes to our construction period. But we are committed to working with our partners to find solutions where we can. So.
Perfect. So just to kind of piggyback a little bit on what have you guys, what have been some barriers that your guys' company has struggled with?
Sure. We have been very busy. So I think it's just trying to manage the workload, especially for our construction teams, of how quickly we can get work done, but done in a quality manner that we kind of rest our reputation on, which is really vital to us. So making sure we're striking that balance there, locates. And I know we've had a couple challenges with some state archaeological studies that need to be done and things like that kind of come up across the state that we are certainly challenged by, but working with the partners that we can to kind of get those resolved, but very similar challenges to the other providers in the room.
Perfect question. Yeah, sure.
Do you have like a service map of your area that is available either online or where we can access that?
I'm not sure if we have a specific one located online, but I would be happy to pull that together and send that over to Leslie to share with the commission.
Thank you.
Yep.
And I totally get the sickness. Yeah, but that's ripped through our family and me and I think a fellow commissioner here. So it's I think it's hit about 75% of people in the last 2 months. So yeah, no, that sounds good.
Leslie, or Mr. Chair, can I ask a question here? Is it possible that after today we can take everybody's build out information and have a one map that says this is what's done as of today, and this is what we hope to have done by freeze up on the last day of construction in 25, and this is where we plan to be in at the end of 26 and the 27? Because I know we're making progress, but it's hard for me to tell somebody, yeah, we were last because we only had this much done. We have to be moving up, and I know everybody in the state's moving up, but we've moved the needle a long, long ways, and I would like to be able to demonstrate that.
Yeah, and
A good request.
in our GIS mapping on Beacon, we do have several of those layers. So we've been collecting shape files from all of the providers as projects
Okay.
submitted and then funded. And so we do have a little bit of cleanup to do. I want to remove the LTD broadband off of our RDOF layer, but other than that, we have it. I don't think I can draw the line in the sand like by year because construction seasons are so volatile. You don't know how much is going to get done, but I can show you what's been funded and will be completed by the end of each of their awards. And some of them are, you know, at the end of 2026 and 27 and 28 and 29. But we do have it mapped out to show what the coverage will be after all of these recent funding streams will be finished. Including a little bit of Midco's service area. So, I mean, we have their RDOF one mapped out and then a couple, I think you've shared your fiber lines with us, so we know where the fiber runs, and a small project that Midco did on the Cross Lake Trail. I think that's the road. But yes, we do have it mapped out. It is not fun to look at, but can get it cleaned up and share it with you guys as a file, or you can hop on Beacon, show you how to activate layers and so you can see it.
Okay.
Perfect. Anybody else, any questions for this one? All right, and I think we had Frontier.
Yep.
Yeah.
Frontier, Todd.
Todd, there you go. Sorry, I didn't write the name down, but Todd, yeah, if you want to give us a little bit, go ahead.
Good morning, everyone. Todd Cruz, Frontier Communications. Appreciate all of your public service. I go to a lot of these meetings, and it's really the same conversation across all the states I work. So I'll address two items because I don't want to repeat the other ISPs. We all deal with the same challenges. We're all frenemies, right? Because it's a network of networks. We have to compete and collaborate at the same time and avoid collusion. So it's a lot of C's to balance there. Frontier itself is being acquired by Verizon. It's publicly released, you know, it's very public, but just to address some key questions I get, Verizon is acquiring all Frontier assets, all legal entities, and all contracts and obligations. So like we have a border-to-border grant in Minnesota. If we win some BEAD grants, all of those would become the assets and obligations of Verizon. It may close in, you know, first quarter of 26 or even late 25. It all depends on FCC and state approval at this point. That said, I guess, again, I don't want to repeat the ISPs because we all deal with the same issues, but just to give you a localized example, summer last year, 24, I was out on a construction site with colleagues, and the local manager said, you know, they've reached the point when we talk about take rates, which is subscription rates, our local managers go out and do door knocking. We do that anyway for marketing, but if needed, a local manager has gone out and convinced someone to move to fiber. You know, if their phone bill might be $85, and if they move to 1 gig fiber, it's $65, but yet you still have to have a one-to-one conversation because ultimately all of us, AT&T is really leading this around the country to decommission the copper network. It's more expensive to maintain, you know, the downsides versus fiber. The other thing I'd footnote, every Wednesday I join our construction calls. It's multiple states. And if I did a tally count, you know, do we have an equipment shortage? Do we have staffing issues? Locates and permitting are a challenge constantly. So wanted to share that. And then the last thing I'd say, we use a tagline that says, red is green, red is the fiber, or I'm sorry, red is Frontier's color, and red is green, a reference to the environment. When you look at environmental permits, yeah, there's a lot of factors with those, but the reality is fiber is better for the economy because we have less electrical use when we convert in our central office to fiber. So I've done some central office tours and shown people the difference in the equipment, but when you move from that copper network to fiber, it changes a lot of things, not just, you know, the quality of service you have at home. Last thing I'll say is geographically, I'll coordinate with Leslie some maps, but I tried to post it, but Zoom won't allow it. We serve the northern tier of the county. The northeast corner, I'll state the obvious, a state forest is challenging.
Yeah.
There's some real remote locations. In fact, in Alaska, they've connected some homes. The fiber's more expensive than the home. It's like $358,000 for connecting some of those homes. So it's interesting economics. All of this happens across 50 states and 6 territories, roughly at the same time. Frontier, we're in 25 states. 10 states are going through the application process right now. So 10 of our 25 were going through all of this, looking at the BEAD grant application process. The last thing on geography, and again, I'll coordinate maps with Leslie. When you look at the various grants, some of it's in Frontier territory, and you overlay that with BEAD eligible grant locations, what's called BSLs. The proximity of that, by the time we get through this grant process and the money starts flowing, which could be late 25, early 26, when I look at the geography, some of these might be connected before the BEAD dollars even start flowing, just because the grant areas that are under construction are in, you know, close proximity to grant locations. So it'll be interesting how the two converge. So with that, thanks for the time and appreciate your service.
Thank you.
And that's kind of part of it is what.
Thank you.
What I'd like is like, if you guys all work in multiple areas, townships, cities, counties, whatever. And if you got all these different things, you obviously don't just focus on one area. But that's where I was kind of getting at with my permitting stuff and all that. If Pine County's the easiest to deal with and we're up at the front of that line, and or, hey, I got, you know, just taking an example, you got 5 projects in 5 different counties or townships or cities or whatever, and ours are come to fruition first, that puts us at the front of the line. And that's where I think we gotta push to our townships and cities in our county to be like, hey, let's not make this restrictive on these guys. I guess if you do and you want to be a township that doesn't want broadband, great, you know, enjoy that if that's something you want. But I think we gotta, because then you're at the front of the line, you're the first one. If it takes more resources, you're going, you know, and I think that's where I would like to see Pine at, you know, and we'll see. I mean, I don't know if that's realistic either, but that's just part of it. So
I will say your permitting process for Pine County Utility, the right of ways, has been very efficient and very timely and pleasure to work with.
Okay, good. And it was funny, I had called our engineer one time about, I had a friend of mine that works for a different power company and not ECE. And he goes, and it's more in the metro area, and he goes, you guys really need to get up to the game and start charging, right, you know, permitting. You know, he goes, I got work in cities, they charge by the foot and it's a lot of money. He goes, you guys are missing out. And I talked to Mark, and this is our staff. And he goes, why? He goes, we want to make it easier on the providers to put it in because we're servicing the community, you know, and that's how our staff is. It's, yeah, okay, we're going to make an extra 30 grand on some permitting things, but then that pushes us back to the bottom. of the line and so it doesn't make sense. And I appreciate that from him and it's nice to hear that. So thank you. So.
So, Mr. Chair, I think that's all the providers.
Yes.
And then we do have Kyle from Hometown Fiber here. He's done some work under contract for the county on some mapping and some quality assurance things. I don't know, Kyle, do you have any thoughts you want to add to the conversation?
Thank you. Yeah, there's a lot in motion, and I think keeping track of all that, and like to Leslie's point, you know, giving that into a map format or something graphical that people can understand in near real time takes an awful lot of coordination from everyone involved. And so the thing that was encouraging today was to see all of the participation from the ISPs expressing some of their points of frustration. Some of those points can be addressed at the county level, right? Some of them are out of the county's control. But there's some streamlining and stuff here that I see that could be worked upon and implemented so that going forward, it's easier for the ISPs to construct, because ultimately that's the goal, is to get everybody served. And so knowing specifically where those areas are, I don't know, you know, when you talk about surveys and stuff, I kind of parrot your point here today was, we know that it's needed. We know that people want it. The surveys kind of all tell that regardless of the participation. So I don't know how surveying brings a lot to it unless it's like a pre-order or marketing, you know, pre-purchasing type thing. But I just, it's really encouraging to see what you all have done here. So we're happy to be part of it, and we're happy to be helping Pine County get fiber service to everyone.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, can I just say one? I'm trying not to say a lot, but I can't help myself. But anyway, I want to thank everybody in the room for their due diligence and their hard work and commitment. I know it was a stretch for all of your companies and to convince your investors and your boards that investing in broadband and running it out to the rural counties was a good move for you, and I applaud you for that. We have made tremendous strides. I've been in this business since the 80s, before we knew what the internet was. We were doing distance learning in these communities thanks to Midco and Savage for 20 years before the internet arrived almost. So I appreciate the work that you've done, and I know it's been a challenge and we've had some hiccups, but you've responded, and we're moving forward, and people that want the internet, need the internet. I talked to a lot of people that have moved to Pine County because they now have decent internet and they work from home, and it's changed their lives. It's changed, I think, our communities a lot. So thank you.
Thanks, Commissioner Holland. And I would even add, I've heard of people that didn't buy a said house and or build other than in a said place because they didn't have internet, you know, and because it is a huge thing. I mean, I think everybody at the table, if you didn't have internet, good or bad, I'll say sometimes when you get on a cruise ship and your phone don't work and your internet don't work, it's kind of the best 5 days or whatever, a few days that you've had. But literally we can't, in the United States, you can't operate without a decent internet. And what's decent? I mean, I think 100 is pretty basic nowadays, you know, we're running YouTube or even doing kids, you know, doing a school is a big thing now, you know. So also with that, I would just like to say or just add, maybe I know we have a couple senator offices here today. Did either one of them, I think you're with Senator Smith's office. Did you want to come up and say a few things or not? If you don't, We can give you a mic or you can squeeze in here even. Just pull up a chair.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it.
Just say your name because you weren't here when we did.
Right. Perfect. So Orion DeFranco, I'm from Senator Tina Smith's office. Apologize for being late today. Had another meeting beforehand, but I guess all I'll say is great to hear from the providers and county folks here. I'm going to be staying after just to make sure that all of you have my contact information. If there's anything our office can help with in terms of grant implementation for Reconnect or questions about BEAD, whether you're applying for more grants or whether you just have concerns about federal policy, FCC, whatever that might be, feel free to reach out to me. And work in Senator Smith's office, not only in the Northeast and East Central region, but also specifically on the issue of broadband. So happy to get my card out to everyone and appreciate you holding this meeting. Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you. And I believe we have Rachel online. Do you want to say a few things with Senator Klobuchar's office? Maybe not.
Did she hop off?
Okay, maybe we lost her. Okay. Well, with that, does anybody have anything else?
I just want to add a couple more things. So from my perspective here at the county, I often get, not often, but over the course of the last few years, I would get an email or a phone call. I'm looking to get better internet. And what do? So I would hop on the maps that Hometown Fiber created for us first, because that tells me who had, excuse me, infrastructure there back in 2021. And then I can kind of see based on our maps on Beacon, who else is building out there. So most of the time it is either referring them to Savage Communications, Midco, or ECE. And then I also encourage them to fill out an Office of Broadband line extension form on OBD's website, because that'll also get them maybe in the state's portal to get some grant funds to any of these providers bidding on these projects. Is there anything else I can do besides that and sending them to your respective websites to sign up for a service? Because that's the other thing I've told people. If you don't ask for it, they might not come to you. They might not know you exist. Yes, we have all of these fancy maps across the state, federal, and even local governments that show us where buildings are. But sometimes you guys build houses and no one knows about it. So props to you. Or if you don't have electric service and you're off the grid and you literally are, living all by yourself, but you want broadband so you can stay connected, this is how you do it. Is there anything else we can do aside from that to help get them to you to sign up so that you know about it? I'm doing everything perfectly? Great.
I think
No.
I think you're doing a wonderful job. I think I'd prefer you guys,
Send them just to you?
send them. No, I mean, like, I was actually gonna say, let's avoid Starlink and we're trying to bring solutions to these
Yeah.
rural areas. I mean,
Yep.
you'd be surprised. We pass homes that have Starlink and we're gonna be half the cost and they still don't want to switch. Right? And it's crazy, but we run into it. So,
Okay.
I was just gonna give you a hard time about not giving leads to Starlink.
Oh,
Help EC and SCIO.
I feel like I've stopped doing that. Just to give a personal story, a few years, when I started with Pine County, I had a provider that was offering me, the 25, I think it was 25.5. And I at best got 8 with a family of 6, just 5 miles west of the interstate. Signed up for Starlink, had that for a solid couple years, and then I know I submitted my address through the broadband line extension grant program, and I am currently a Midco customer, but now I have 775 over, I don't even know, we literally operate without a blip. To my husband's absolute pleasure, he can watch a hockey game, stream a hockey game without any glitches. That's big in our family. So ironically, I was also having a conversation with him on the way to a hockey game about the differences in internet and how it's progressed over the years. And by no means am I like an expert, but at least I can talk people through like why fiber to your home would be the golden thing to get. Because it's just solid. Yes, fixed wireless will get you through. Low orbit satellite will get you through, but when a thunderstorm hits, and you can probably attest to this, Commissioner Moore, you don't have internet if you have low orbit satellite. So you're trying to see when the storm's gonna end, and if you don't have good cell service, which I don't at my house, we were just kind of like, maybe we should head down to the basement. I don't know. You know, so I definitely do that, like talk people through the differences. The biggest thing I hear is, you know, it's so expensive, or I heard it's expensive. And I'm like, well, did you call? And what is expensive to you? Because I know each of our providers offers that tiered approach. And then the next question is, how much data do I need? I'm like, well, they should be able to measure how much you've been using and tell you how much you actually do need. And that was a conversation I was having with my dad, who lives north of town, and not sure if he really needs to keep cable TV, or if he can just stream everything. So it's just like this, it's almost like a digital equity piece of teaching people. And I try to encourage people. And then that is kind of why I have this huge 4-page thing. It's also on the county's website, walks people through everything I've learned over the last 4 years and guides them through, like, as much as you want to go down a rabbit hole or get to a link to learn more information about broadband and fiber and Wi-Fi. That's what people like to call it, just Wi-Fi, which I get, you know. So yes, Rick.
Yeah, you told me about that, and I had everyone in our development, which is about a quarter mile north of the city of Sturgeon Lake. And our provider is MediaCom, and the city of Sturgeon Lake actually received a letter from MediaCom April 4th of 24. And you said yours was put in pretty quickly.
Yep.
And we're in all sand country there. I thought, you know, in our development, I believe there's 16 homes there, and they said they were going to move forward. And you know, I was telling everyone, yeah, it's great that you did this and everything. And unfortunately, we don't have anything. So I don't know what the delay is. So you know, sometimes, you know, like your story was great. Unfortunately, sometimes, you know, you have to wait a little longer than.
Do you know if they were awarded funds?
Yeah, I've got the email.
Was it line extension or was it border to border?
Hold on.
I mean, it was, I guess my point is, I mean, from the time we apply and we're awarded funds, you're at least a year out from construction.
Oh, really?
Because you have, the biggest hurdle for us right now is environmental reviews, SHPO. And then you got state permitting. That's another big issue.
Oh,
So you're about a year out before you're putting a shovel in the ground.
I guess it's just a letter of support.
Okay.
So
I'm familiar with the area you're talking about. I'm pretty sure they got a border to border grant in that area. I'm fairly confident. So I'm sure it's coming.
okay. Yeah, I don't know where we're at, but hopefully it's coming shortly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't happen overnight. I think just we're all working hard to get it done and doing our best and our, like EC mentioned, I mean, their construction seasons are very short in Minnesota. We wish they were longer. We wish we could just keep it going.
Get the rain to stop in the spring a little bit, like last spring.
Yeah.
It's a little rough.
We do have Frontier, but you know, you have two people on a phone and you're trying to stream something on your TV and it shuts off. So,
right.
So it'd be nice to have, you know, and Frontier, and then plus, you know, I have satellite. So if you did have that availability to have MediaCom and be able to have YouTube and stream,
right,
you could probably save some money. So
yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I think there's also one other thing to consider is we're in this phase of what the state, federal government have deemed service. You have service 100 by 20. Think of what that's going to be in 2028, in 2035, and 2040. SCI is putting a product out there that 10 gig, same as us. That's future proofing, right? So the ones that are at that barely hanging on to 100 by 20 or slightly above that, Starlink would fall into that category eventually. You got to think about that as well. And the one thing we keep talking about with Office of Broadband, DEED is, and they obviously are actively talking about too, is maintaining that network. Okay, we receive the funds. We've got 5,000 miles of fiber. We obviously have our OpEx and, you know, what we can do, but that isn't a small task either. So there's, I think we can say, okay, yeah, we got it served. Well, if it's not served with a product that is true fiber to the home, that's eventually going to fall off on the speed test scale. So the story is not over once the county's fully served with the minimum standards right now. So something else to focus on.
I got a couple quick things, just one to piggyback on Leslie, was the price and has that been an issue for you guys provider wise? I mean, do people not take it because it costs too much?
Oh, yeah.
They do, huh? I just, cause you can get into a pretty low price, like 60, 70 bucks.
$64.95 is our lowest, but there's no charge to construct. But what we hear is their CenturyLink, they have a price for life at $40 and they can get their phone, but their service is fine for them. They maybe just checking email, surfing the web. They're not doing a lot of streaming. They're not uploading anything. They're not in Teams or Zoom calls all day long. So that might be adequate for them. But as soon as they move out and the next family moves in, is there service available there? So
yeah, because I look at our Starlink and that's not cheap. I mean, it's if I could get pretty good fiber to my house for
that's really not a comparable thing.
Yeah,
It's speed and price, and a lot, we're living, there's no secret of why Pine was 87 of 87, Kanabec County's 86. Isani was, I think, 83 of 87 in terms of least served counties in the state. It's a very poor population. If you look at that so it all relates. So, getting rid of ACP, those things are kind of make some of these families struggle to make that shift. $20 a month is a big deal, or $30 a month, whatever it is. So, so we're looking at a few things to help with that. And we work with a lot of local entities on our power side, Lakes and Pines and others to help with on the energy side. What can we do to help out our communities from the, on the fiber side is actively looking at that.
Good. And I think, did you have something? No? Or, yeah, okay, sorry.
So I'm a retired teacher and I know the value of having computer access at home, and it's gotten intensified since I've retired. Is it worth, when you're looking at surveys and things, to look at using the schools as a way to get to the parents? These kids need internet access. So can you do some work through the schools to say, take this home to your parents, call this number. Don't ask them to go online and look at it because they probably don't know how, they probably don't have the access. They need a telephone number to do it. But you can reach a lot of households where kids aren't getting, they can't go home and do their homework. So that's just a possibility for your surveys and whatever.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Can I just ask, at this point, what's the point of the survey? I mean, us providers know there's a need to get everybody serviced.
Okay.
That's a big part of what the BEAD program is. Every location that's not serviceable today needs to be serviced in the state of Minnesota, right? Diane Wells with BEAD, I wish she was still on the call. She could maybe review that with you guys a little bit, but every location has to have some kind of service, whether it's wireline or Starlink or whatever it is. There's $652 million they're working with in the state of Minnesota. That's not including what we're putting in for private capital or ECU's putting in for private capital. It's a big number that's coming to the state. So I don't know if you're planning to spend money or what your plan is with, I don't know what your goal is with the survey, I guess.
Okay.
And us providers, we know we have the information.
Okay.
So don't do it for us.
Yeah. Okay. I'll piggyback on it. Yeah. Fully agree. I had the exact same question, because if you look at the map, you look at where SCI serves or C-Fiber, both full fiber to the home. There's no wireless. I guess I won't speak for SCI. I don't think so. And if you look at the maps, we're still on track to have everything served in our portion by 2027. And with where SCI is already serving, the portions we don't serve is Minnesota Power up to 35 corridor, Hinckley. You can go look at the map. It's all out there. So might be somewhat bold, but I would say that by the end of 27, you could safely say Pine County should be, I don't want to say 100% served by full fiber to the home, multiple providers. And I just don't see a need. And then, you know, obviously the BEAD piece of, like you said, that the way they carve that out is different than how the border program has worked in the past. And so we've already been doing that actively on the Wisconsin side. So it requires us to potentially serve non-members because it doesn't match our lines of where our service territory is. So anyway, long-winded answer to say I agree that I don't know that I would spend and commit the time to a survey, to be honest, because I think the problem, this is recorded in public, but I don't see it being an issue come the end of 27. Now, a lot of caveats in that with permitting, construction season, all that, but yeah, I really do think the digital divide will be solved. Then it's just a matter of what's it look like 10 years from now and 15 years from now and 20 years from now.
Good. Well, that's good. I appreciate that. Yeah. Because we have very limited resources and why waste them? So I appreciate that. So I know we did have Hannah online with the state of Minnesota. Did you have a few things maybe you wanted to say, Hannah?
Thank you, first of all, for including our office in your meeting today. Unfortunately, Diane is the one with all of the BEAD knowledge that you would find useful. My knowledge is very elementary with BEAD. But I'm happy to pass along any questions that you may have for her. And if you'd like to reach out to her later, I'm sure she can provide more information in that area.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. All right. Did anybody else have anything they wanted to talk about? Yeah, go ahead.
Mr. Chair, a couple of things. I think it would be helpful. I know Commissioner Helen talked about maps and such, but if we could see what a map of at the end of your build out regarding the grants that you've already got, you know, whether it's 2027 or 2028, I'd like to see a map of all the county, what's served, what's overlapped, and where are the holes, you know, because ultimately that's where we have to figure out, are there any small holes yet to be covered? So big picture, I think that would be helpful. Secondly is in the overlap areas, you know, I appreciate the fact that, you know, competition, you know, drives down costs, drives up efficiency, and I think, and yet the build out is very expensive, and it probably couldn't happen without grants. That being said, the fact that we are spending an immense amount of money to double up in certain areas, is that a concern at all? You know, the big picture, yeah, because grant money isn't free. Somebody has to pay for it. And it's like, yeah, I'd rather have it in Pine County than somewhere else. But is it a concern at all, or is it just, that's just the way it is? I'm just asking the question.
I can make a quick comment on that. I know you're not gonna be able to spend government money on top of government money, so that's not gonna happen. I think it's up to an individual provider if they want to spend their own capital to go overbuild government money. That's the provider's decision to do. If they can make economic sense out of it, go for it. But there's no government money being spent on top of government money in the state.
Yeah, that's the exact same thing. We could double up on overbuilding, you know, vice versa, regardless of who the provider is. But yeah, I can't apply for grant funding over the top of an area that's been grant funded. It just doesn't work that way.
Okay, so what you're saying is when you do double up, somebody is doing that of their own volition.
We're doing all member capital and member.
And that's helpful for the public because they think, you know, we've got to explain that, you know, so yeah, thank you.
And that's why we map everything too, because like we wanted to start with the baseline and understand where everybody was. And we knew that we were going to use some of the ARPA funding to granted out to the providers and wanted to ensure that we weren't granting out funds where they were already getting them. So that's kind of where we started. The RDOF awards were some of the first ones. And so that's where we started our mapping from. And then we, layered it with what Hometown Fiber figured out for us. And yeah, the maps, I mean, as you click the layers on and off, you can kind of see it, but we will work to clean them up so it makes and it's a little bit more user friendly. So it can be a goal for this year.
There's very helpful maps on the FCC's website as well. I'm not sure if anybody has looked at any of those. I would assume Hometown has. They've been pretty good about updating those fairly regularly throughout these grant cycles, so.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
2 questions directed to the providers. We all just learned in the last few days that there is a federal pause on federal grants and loans. Do you have any insight as to whether that will impact any of your projects?
You've been going first the whole time. Said that. For us, for existing projects, no, or grant projects. In fact, most of those areas have either been built out or close to being built out. A few on our western service territory that haven't. Small concern, but what we're hearing, we have a lot of national lobbyists on our national organization and our statewide organization. They do a great job of lobbying and saying, hey, we're here. We were asked to solve this digital divide in rural America. We're helping to do that. And now we're, eventually get the legs cut out from under us, kind of. And what I'll say to that is we've already got a big service territory on the fiber side carved out. But at this point, not a real big concern. Feel like it's just a pause, hopefully, and the funding will still come to fruition. I don't know if that's the same.
Yeah, we're in the same spot. I mean, we have 400 miles laid out to build in 2025 and we're maintaining that plan.
Thank you. And then second question. So are there any state level issues that we should be, I guess, bringing up to our legislators from your perspective that would be helpful?
I'd say no, but if you hear of some, we can let your local ISP know. Minnesota DEED has been incredibly helpful with offering help, but I've seen nothing so far that's derailed any of our projects.
I mean,
it's been pretty smooth sailing.
The permitting process with, some of that is a little bit elongated and just takes time, but we're fully aware of that, so we address that plenty early. Really don't have.
One thing that one bit of advice that DEED had shared with us, and I would assume other ISPs, is through that permitting process, if there's a DNR or state permit, to basically indicate on that permit app that it's a grant funded area, and that all of these permitting entities are looking for that. So if they see that it's a grant funded permit area that you're building, they're supposed to be speeding it along.
Me next? I don't really have much either. I mean, there's some things out there that I prefer not to get into in this conversation. But I mean, I truly feel that we're in the fourth quarter of the game here with broadband, and we have a direction as a provider. We know who the players are going to be in the county. And I feel like we're going to get it to the finish line here over the next few years.
Thank you.
And that's what I'd like to say is this meeting was a lot different than I thought it was. It's nice to hear that, like you said, we're in the fourth quarter, and it's getting there. And to make that final push, if you guys need anything from us, and like Dave was saying, we got pretty good relationships with our legislatures. And if that helps, we can definitely put pressure on them too. I know they're only a few people, but it does make a difference as well. So did you guys online have anything you want to add? Steve or JJ?
I'll shut up. I got a lot I want to add. Just thanks.
Yeah, thank you guys for coming.
Yeah. 10 years ago, we struggled getting broadband providers to the table. to other than to have coffee. They always showed up and we had coffee, but we had nothing to offer. They had nothing really, we had excellent service to our schools. I've said that forever. Between Midco and Savage, our schools in Pine County had as good a service as anybody in America. Way better than many schools in America. But a half a mile down the road, nothing. Zip.
All right. Well, with that, I don't think there's anything else to add, is there? JJ, do you have something? Okay. All right. Well, thanks again, everybody, for showing up and participated online. I really appreciate it. It is exciting. I'm still waiting for the day that I'm tethered to fiber, but we'll see. I'm right in between both of you, so whoever wants to race, I'll take it. Yeah, we'll get there, and I just appreciate everything. So thanks again, and I'll call the meeting adjourned.
Thanks.
Thanks for answering that question.